Have you ever wondered why, with all the knowledge we have at our fingertips, so many of us still feel lost, restless, or unfulfilled? We chase information the way a thirsty traveler chases mirages, yet the water never seems to come. We scroll, we read, we collect facts, but when silence falls and the noise fades, we're left asking, why doesn't this feel like wisdom? The Stoics believed intelligence was not about how much you know, but about how well you live with what you know. They saw the mind not as a vessel to be filled, but as a fire to be kindled. A fire that burns away illusions, that warms you when life grows cold, that lights a path when confusion surrounds you. Real intelligence, they taught, is not the power to impress others with words, but the ability to govern yourself, to see clearly, and to act with strength and compassion. Today, more than ever, we need that kind of intelligence. Not the kind that adds weight to our minds, but the kind that lightens our hearts and sharpens our focus. There are rituals, practices woven into the fabric of Stoic philosophy that can train us to think differently, to rise above noise, and to see life with clarity. If that longing speaks to you, then stay with me. Let's walk through these 9 rituals together. Number 1. Read with purpose. Have you ever noticed how a single page can change the way you see the world? In the quiet act of opening a book, there is more than just leisure. There is a doorway, a chance to step into the minds of others and to confront the depths of your own. Reading is not escape, it is encounter. It is where ideas breathe life into our thoughts and challenge us to grow. The Stoics understood the power of words. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself through writing that the quality of his mind depended on the quality of what he allowed into it. To read regularly is to choose what we feed the mind, just as carefully as we choose what we feed the body. A book does more than pass the time. It stretches the intellect, refines language, and sparks the kind of reflection that changes how we live. Picture a young man who feels trapped in routine, his days predictable and his spirit restless. One evening he picks up a book, not a manual or a textbook, but a collection of letters from a philosopher long gone. As he reads, he feels as though someone across centuries is speaking directly to him. He pauses, reflects, and realizes he has been measuring success by standards not his own. That night he closes the book not with answers, but with sharper questions, the kind that lead to change. Reading offers us this silent dialogue across time and culture. It teaches us empathy by allowing us to inhabit lives unlike our own. It sharpens the mind as surely as exercise strengthens the body. And in a world that bombards us with fragments and noise, the depth of a book becomes an anchor, a place where we slow down long enough to think clearly. So let reading become more than a pastime. Let it be a habit, a discipline, a quiet rebellion against distraction. Every page you turn is not just knowledge gained, but wisdom waiting to unfold. And once we embrace the power of reading, the next step is to see how learning itself can be carried into every moment of our lives. Number 2. Keep learning always. Have you ever caught yourself believing that your education ended the day you left the classroom, as if learning belonged only to youth or to formal study? Yet life itself has a way of reminding us that lessons never cease. Each joy teaches us gratitude, each hardship tests our endurance, and each encounter with another person stretches our understanding of what it means to live. The Stoics saw this truth clearly. Seneca once wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." Learning was not for him a pursuit of facts, but a lifelong training of the soul. To learn is to sharpen judgment, to refine perspective, to adjust course when wisdom demands it. The man who refuses to learn grows rigid and brittle, but the one who remains curious, open to being shaped by experience, remains alive, supple, and free. Consider a craftsman who has spent decades mastering his trade. His hands move with practiced certainty, his skills admired by all. One day, his tools break, and he is forced to adopt new methods, new instruments. At first, frustration gnaws at him. He feels too old to start again. But as weeks pass, something changes. He begins to enjoy the challenge, discovering techniques he never thought possible. In learning anew, he not only saves his craft, but renews his spirit. His humility to remain a student keeps him vibrant where pride might have left him stagnant. Continuous learning does not belong only to courses, seminars, or structured platforms. It flows through every corner of life. It is found in the quiet wisdom of nature, where a changing season whispers lessons about patience and renewal. It appears in the conversations we have, when listening to another person forces us to expand our perspective beyond the limits of our own. It dwells in solitude, when reflection transforms ordinary days into profound teachers. Even mistakes, often dreaded, are among our most faithful instructors, if only we have the courage to ask what they are trying to show us. But learning, the Stoics remind us, must never remain theory. Knowledge without action is like a blade that is never used. It rusts. The true measure of learning lies in its application. To learn resilience is meaningless if we crumble at the first sign of difficulty. To learn justice is hollow if we refuse to act fairly when tempted otherwise. The fruit of knowledge is the life shaped by it. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that each day was a training ground, a place to apply philosophy to the smallest choices: how to greet another, how to endure pain, how to respond to insult. He did not seek to collect ideas like ornaments, but to embody them as habits of character. In this, continuous learning becomes not an abstract pursuit, but the very art of living well. In our modern world, where information floods us without pause, the challenge is not scarcity, but focus. To truly learn is not to consume endlessly, but to choose carefully, to reflect deeply, and to apply consistently. It is to approach life with the humility of a beginner, the discipline of a craftsman, and the curiosity of a child. So let your days be marked not by how much you have done, but by what you have learned. Let every success teach you gratitude, every failure teach you resilience, and every moment teach you how to live with greater clarity and purpose. For to live is to learn, and to learn, if we embrace it fully, is to truly live. And once we understand that growth is a lifelong practice, we are ready to explore the next ritual, the art of stillness through meditation. Number 3. Practice inner stillness. Have you ever sat in silence, yet felt the storm of thoughts raging inside you, regrets pulling you backward, worries pushing you forward, and your mind scattered in all directions? It is in those moments that you realize true silence is not the absence of sound, but the calm mastery of the self. Meditation is that doorway, a sanctuary where the mind retreats, steadies itself, and remembers its true strength. The Stoics often turned inward for this very reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Meditation is this retreat. It is not an escape from life, but a training ground within it. A practice of meeting your own thoughts honestly and learning to govern them rather than be governed by them. When we sit still, we discover that many of our fears are shadows. many of our irritations are fleeting, and that beneath the noise lies a clarity waiting to guide us. Picture a man in the heart of a busy city, overwhelmed by deadlines and distractions. One evening, instead of reaching for more noise, his phone, the television, endless conversations, he simply closes his eyes and breathes. At first, his thoughts attack him harder than the world outside, but slowly he begins to see them for what they are, clouds passing across the sky. For the first time in weeks, he feels not control over life, but control over himself. That shift changes everything. Meditation teaches patience, resilience, and acceptance. It is not passive, it is an active engagement with the deepest part of who we are. In this stillness, our emotional storms lose their grip, and our decisions become clearer, wiser, and calmer. It bridges heart and mind, thought and action, guiding us back to balance in a world that constantly pulls us away from it. So let meditation be your compass. In stillness, you do not escape life. You prepare to live it more fully. And once we find this inner anchor, the next step is to strengthen the body, for the mind cannot stand firm if the body itself grows weak. Number 4. Strengthen body and mind. Have you ever noticed how the body remembers what the mind forgets? A restless mind may try to push forward, but a tired body pulls it back into truth. When we neglect movement, we soon feel it, not only in our muscles, but in our thoughts. Fatigue clouds judgment. Heaviness dulls clarity, and even the smallest challenges feel insurmountable. Yet when we rise, stretch, breathe deeply, and move with purpose, something shifts. Energy flows back into us, and suddenly the mind is sharper, lighter, more alive. The Stoics recognized this connection between body and soul. They understood that philosophy was not only an intellectual exercise, but a discipline of the whole being. Epictetus reminded his students that it is not what happens to us that defines us, but how we respond. Physical training mirrors this truth. When you push through a long run, when your muscles ache under weight, or when your breath burns during a climb, you are teaching yourself not only strength of body, but resilience of spirit. Each drop of sweat becomes a silent lesson in perseverance. Each step forward becomes proof that discipline is stronger than discomfort. Picture a soldier in ancient Rome rising before dawn to train. His armor is heavy, his body weary from yesterday's march, yet he drills again, lifting, striking, running. To the casual observer, it may seem like he is merely preparing for battle, but in truth, he is preparing his mind. The rhythm of movement, the control of breath, the endurance of pain, all become lessons in self-mastery. When he enters the battlefield, it is not just his sword that is sharp, but his spirit, honed through repetition and sweat. Modern life, though far removed from battlefields, still demands this kind of discipline. The science confirms what the Stoics already knew. Movement fuels the mind. Exercise increases blood flow, nourishes the brain with oxygen, and even stimulates the growth of new connections that sharpen memory and creativity. It floods us with endorphins that lift mood and steady nerves, reminding us that strength is not only physical, but emotional. In a world drowning in stress and distraction, this becomes a priceless advantage, the ability to think clearly, to stay calm, to adapt quickly. Beyond the science, there is something deeply human about the act of movement. When you train consistently, whether in a gym, on a track, or in the quiet focus of yoga, you discover the value of patience. You learn that progress is not immediate, but earned, that growth comes through steady effort, and that even the smallest victories carry meaning. These lessons seep into every part of life. The discipline you practice in exercise echoes in the discipline you bring to work, to relationships, to moments of trial. Seneca once said, "We treat the body rigorously so that it will not be disobedient to the mind." He understood that when we let the body grow weak and sluggish, our mind follows. But when we demand more from ourselves, when we stretch beyond comfort, we discover just how much strength we carry within. The act of moving the body becomes a metaphor for moving through life, step by step, breath by breath, persistence over surrender. So let physical exercise be more than routine. Let it be a ritual, a celebration of what it means to be fully alive. Each movement, each effort is not wasted. It is sharpening you for the unseen trials ahead. And if this message resonates, take a moment to subscribe and drop a simple word in the comments: strength. Because that is what we are building, not only in our bodies, but in our character. And as we carry this lesson forward, the next ritual will show us how to strengthen not only our physical endurance, but the clarity of our choices, because wisdom, like muscle, grows stronger with practice. Number 5. Embrace new skills. Have you ever felt the quiet weight of routine, that sense of living the same day over and over, as if life had turned into a familiar corridor with no doors left to open? It is comforting to remain in the known, to move along paths we've already mastered. But comfort can also dull the spirit. Growth comes when we dare to step beyond what is easy, when we allow ourselves to be a beginner again, unsteady, uncertain, and alive with the possibility of discovery. The Stoics often reminded us that we are not static beings. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Part of that strength is choosing to grow deliberately, to stretch both body and mind by taking on new challenges. Learning a new skill may look small from the outside. Perhaps it is the first clumsy stroke of a brush, the awkward notes of an unfamiliar instrument, or the halting words of a foreign tongue, but inside it is nothing less than transformation. Each new attempt shapes us, chisels away at complacency, and reminds us that the human spirit was designed to evolve. Consider the story of a man who had spent his life in one profession, respected for his expertise, yet weary of repetition. One day he decided to learn the violin, something far outside his world of numbers and contracts. At first, the sound was harsh, the bow slipping, the strings groaning under his grip. Neighbors smiled politely at the noise, and doubt whispered that he was too old, too late. But night after night he returned, practicing through mistakes, celebrating small victories. Months later, when he finally played a simple melody without faltering, tears filled his eyes. It was not just music he had discovered, but patience, resilience, and the deep joy of being a student again. That is the hidden gift of new skills. The practice itself trains virtues the Stoics prized: discipline, endurance, and humility. You are reminded that mastery is not immediate, that every step forward demands persistence. But as the days accumulate, you notice more than improvement in the skill itself. You notice that you are more adaptable in your work, more patient in your relationships, more willing to face uncertainty in life. The lessons of the practice room follow you into the wider world, shaping not just what you do, but who you are. And beyond the personal growth, every new skill connects you to others. The act of learning a language opens a window into another culture's soul. Picking up a craft or an art form brings you into communities of people who see the world differently, each carrying traditions, philosophies, and stories. To challenge yourself with a new skill is to build bridges between yourself and others, between who you were and who you are becoming. Epictetus taught that progress is not measured by words, but by living in accordance with growth. To step into the unknown, to risk failure in the pursuit of learning, is a declaration that you refuse to remain fixed. It is a reminder that you are a work in progress, that your life can still expand in directions you have not yet imagined. So do not fear being a beginner. Embrace it. For in the shaky first steps of learning something new lies the proof that you are still alive, still capable, still growing. Each skill is not just a tool, it is a thread, weaving fresh colors into the fabric of your existence. And as we turn to the next ritual, we'll see how the way we challenge ourselves outwardly is mirrored by how we discipline ourselves inwardly, shaping not only our abilities, but our very character. Number 6. Grow through connection. Have you ever sat in a crowded place and suddenly realized how much of who you are is shaped by the people around you? A stranger's smile, a friend's silence, a heated debate, or a shared meal. All of these moments carry weight, leaving imprints on your soul, whether you notice them or not. We often think of socialization as something external, as if it is simply about exchanging words. But in truth, every interaction is also a mirror, reflecting parts of ourselves back to us. The Stoics saw this clearly. Seneca observed that time discovers truth, and nowhere is that truth revealed more vividly than in our relationships. To engage with others is to test the quality of our character, to learn patience when we are frustrated, humility when we are praised, and resilience when we are criticized. Socialization, then, is not only about connecting outwardly, but about shaping inwardly. Each conversation has the potential to refine us, each connection to reveal something hidden about our strengths, our biases, and our blind spots. Imagine a man who prides himself on his independence. He tells himself he needs no one, that solitude is safer than the vulnerability of relationships. Yet one day, his neighbor suffers a sudden loss. Without thinking, the man offers comfort, sits quietly with him, and listens. In that moment, he discovers a depth in himself he had ignored, the capacity for empathy, the healing power of presence. He realizes that connection is not weakness, but strength, that it draws out virtues that might otherwise remain dormant. Through the act of socialization, he learns something essential not only about others, but about himself. True connection is not limited to words. It is present in gestures, in the quiet understanding between friends, in the laughter that lightens burdens, in the silence that does not need to be filled. The Stoics would remind us that our perspective is never complete on its own. Only by encountering other minds, other stories, and other struggles do we expand our vision of the world. To close ourselves off is to narrow our humanity. To engage is to grow. But growth often comes with discomfort. Conversations challenge us, forcing us to confront beliefs we hold too tightly. Differences test our patience and push us beyond the safety of our familiar circles. Yet it is precisely in this friction that wisdom is born. Marcus Aurelius reflected that we are made for cooperation, like hands or feet, working together by nature. When we remember this, even disagreement becomes an opportunity, not to dominate, but to understand. Through these exchanges, we also learn the subtle art of empathy. To step into another's world, even briefly, is to recognize the shared threads of humanity that bind us all. We may differ in culture, language, or circumstance, but the dreams that drive us, the fears that haunt us, and the hopes that sustain us are deeply familiar. This recognition softens judgment, broadens compassion, and enriches our sense of belonging. Think of socialization, then, as a kind of training ground. It teaches us collaboration when tasks are too heavy to carry alone. It sharpens our critical thinking when new perspectives challenge our assumptions. It humbles us when we see the vastness of human experience compared to our own small corner. And above all, it affirms that though our paths may be unique, our stories weave together into a collective portrait, each person a stroke in the great canvas of humanity. So let every encounter, no matter how small, be taken seriously. A brief exchange with a stranger, an argument that stings, a conversation that lifts your spirit. All of these are lessons if you choose to see them as such. To engage with others is to engage with life itself, and in doing so, you sharpen not just your mind, but your character. And once we understand how socialization shapes us, the next question becomes, how do we balance these external connections with the solitude required for inner strength? That is where the next ritual leads us. And number 7, nourish with wisdom. Have you ever noticed how a single meal can change the course of your day? A heavy, careless choice leaves you sluggish, irritable, unable to focus, while a meal of balance and care sharpens your clarity, steadies your mood, and fills you with quiet energy. We often overlook it, but food is not just fuel, it is philosophy made tangible. The Stoics taught that we must govern our desires with reason, and nowhere is that discipline more visible than in how we choose to nourish ourselves. Seneca warned against indulgence, reminding us that excess chains the soul just as much as deprivation. What we eat is not a trivial matter, it is a daily practice of self-respect. To place food on the table is to decide not only how we will feel in the coming hours, but also how we are shaping the body that carries our spirit through life. Each bite is a choice between harmony and chaos, clarity and confusion, strength and decay. Consider a man who rises each morning fatigued, though he has slept well. His mind feels dull, his body heavy. He blames work, age or stress, but never pauses to see what lies on his plate. One day, he decides to change, not by chasing some fashionable diet, but by choosing simply, intentionally. He begins adding fruits, whole grains, greens, and clean sources of protein. Slowly, the fog lifts. His thoughts sharpen, his energy steadies, his mood stabilizes. What he thought was age or fate was, in truth, the quiet consequence of neglect. Through food, he rediscovers vitality. Science confirms what experience already whispers. Nutrition shapes the mind as much as the body. Foods rich in omega-3s support memory and focus. Antioxidants protect brain cells from decline. Whole, unprocessed meals steady blood sugar, allowing emotions to balance instead of spike and crash. But more important than any single nutrient is balance, the art of variety, of harmony, of giving the body what it truly needs, rather than what cravings demand. To eat well is not to punish yourself with restrictions. It is to honor yourself with nourishment. The Stoics might say that a plate of food reflects the state of the soul. A man who eats with excess shows a lack of discipline. A man who eats with care demonstrates self-command. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In the same way, the body becomes shaped by the choices of the table. Eating with intention becomes a daily rehearsal of moderation, of gratitude, of remembering that pleasure should serve life, not dominate it. And food is not only about ourselves. What we eat connects us to the world around us, the soil that produced it, the hands that harvested it, the cultures that carried recipes through centuries. Every meal is a quiet reminder that life is interconnected, that our choices ripple outward into health, environment, and community. When we eat wisely, we affirm that our well-being is tied to the well-being of the world. So let every meal be more than habit. Let it be a ritual of mindfulness, a way of saying, I respect the body that carries me. I honor the mind that guides me. I choose to live in harmony with the gifts before me. Healthy nutrition is not a burden, but a celebration, a chance, 3 times a day, to practice wisdom through action. And once we have cared for the body with nourishment, the next question emerges. How do we strengthen the discipline of the mind, ensuring it does not scatter in distraction but remains steady in focus? That is where the next ritual takes us. Number 8. Honor rest deeply. Have you ever lain awake in the middle of the night, your body tired but your mind restless, chasing thoughts that refuse to fade? In those moments, the silence of the world contrasts sharply with the noise within us, and we begin to realize how precious true rest really is. Sleep is not laziness, nor is it wasted time. It is one of the most essential rituals of life, a hidden workshop where the body repairs itself and the mind restores clarity. The Stoics understood that life is a balance between effort and release, between action and surrender. Seneca wrote that nothing is ours except time, and what better proof than the way we guard or squander the hours meant for rest. When we neglect sleep, we steal from ourselves. We take from tomorrow's clarity, tomorrow's strength, tomorrow's composure. Quality sleep is not indulgence. It is discipline, a recognition that the mind cannot sharpen without stillness, that the soul cannot endure without recovery. Think of a man who prides himself on productivity. He works late into the night, eyes glued to the glow of screens, convinced that pushing harder is the mark of strength. At first, he feels in control, but over time, his thoughts grow clouded, his patience thins, and his emotions swing wildly. One evening, exhausted, he chooses differently. He puts away his devices, dims the light, and lies down early. The next morning, he wakes before the sun, his mind calm, his body renewed. What hours of frantic work could not give him a single night of true rest delivered? He realizes that sleep was not a thief of his time, it was the quiet guardian of his power. Modern science echoes this truth. During sleep, the brain consolidates memories, processes emotions, and clears away toxins that accumulate during the day. This unseen labor is the foundation of focus, creativity, and emotional balance. Without it, we stumble through life half awake, reacting instead of responding, surviving instead of living. With it, we regain clarity, stability, and the capacity to face challenges with calm strength. But quality sleep is not only about duration, it is about depth, rhythm, and environment. It is about creating space where the mind can retreat from the overload of the day. The Stoics would say that preparation is everything, and the same is true here. What we eat, how we manage stress, how long we stare into glowing screens, these daily choices all shape the night ahead. Sleep is a mirror, reflecting the discipline of our waking hours. To treat it carelessly is to dishonor the body. To treat it with reverence is to honor the life entrusted to us. Marcus Aurelius, who often wrote late at night in his meditations, reminded himself that he must rise early to meet his duty, even when the comfort of the bed was tempting. But he did not see sleep as weakness. He saw it as a natural rhythm, necessary so that duty could be met with strength. In this balance lies wisdom, to work when it is time to work, and to rest when it is time to rest. So let sleep be more than escape. Let it be a ritual of trust, a trust that your body knows how to heal, that your mind knows how to restore itself, if only you allow it. Every night is an invitation to surrender, to step away from striving, and to prepare for the clarity of a new day. And once we honor rest as a pillar of wisdom, we must ask, what do we do with the time we are given once we rise? That is where the next ritual leads us, into the art of reflection and self-knowledge. Number 9, reflect to know yourself. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to lose yourself in the noise of the world, chasing approval, rushing through tasks, filling silence with distraction, until suddenly you realize you haven't paused to ask, who am I really becoming? In that moment you understand that the most important journey is not outward, but inward, into the depths of your own being. The Stoics taught that wisdom begins with knowing ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good." Self-knowledge is not a luxury, it is the compass by which we navigate life. To reflect is to hold up a mirror, not of glass, but of the soul, to see clearly the desires that drive us, the fears that hold us back, and the values that shape our choices. Without this practice, we risk moving quickly yet aimlessly, busy but unfulfilled. Imagine a woman who keeps a simple journal by her bedside. Each night she writes, not polished essays, just fragments of thought, moments of gratitude, mistakes she regrets, lessons she notices. Months later, flipping back through the pages, she sees patterns she had missed while living them. She realizes where her anger often rises, what brings her deepest peace, and how her priorities have quietly shifted. In those handwritten lines, she discovers not just her past, but a map for her future. Reflection gave her the clarity to live more intentionally. Self-knowledge is never complete. It is not a destination, but a lifelong unfolding, layer after layer revealing itself as we dare to pause and look honestly. And in that looking, we find freedom. The freedom to act with virtue instead of impulse, to shape a life that is not accidental but deliberate. So take the time to reflect. Keep a record of your thoughts. Ask yourself hard questions, because within you lies an entire universe waiting to be explored and understood. True intelligence is not measured by what you know of the world, but by how well you understand yourself. And when you know yourself, you no longer wander, you walk with purpose, carrying both strength and peace into every step of your journey. When you reach the end of a journey like this, it is not about how many ideas you have gathered, but about the one thought that lingers, the one seed that begins to grow inside you. The Stoics taught us that wisdom is not in chasing more, but in removing the illusions that keep us from seeing clearly. So let these 9 rituals be more than words. Let them be practices that anchor you, guide you, and sharpen the way you live each day. If this message resonates, take a moment to subscribe so that these reminders of strength and clarity can return to you when you need them most. And in the comments, write just 2 words: stay stoic. It will serve as both your declaration and your reminder. Carry this with you as you step back into the world. Intelligence is not measured by what you know, but by how you live with what you know. Stay curious, stay disciplined, and prepare for what comes next. The next lesson awaits you.